What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles in the Open Great League featuring Shadow Hariyama, a Pokemon that, whilst not completely terrible, has never really seen play in any leagues because there have just always been alternative fighting type options that do perform better. However, with the combination of counter getting nerfed and gaining access to Force Palm instead, as well as the mid-season move update which saw it learn Upper Hand, I don't think many people realise just how strong this moveset actually is. Now I'm sure you guys will all agree that Mud Slap and Astonish are two of the best fast moves in the game after both receiving substantial buffs a few seasons ago, but Force Palm is just a strict upgrade on those two moves, generating the same energy but dealing one more damage. Likewise, there's been a lot of hype for Sludge, Aqua Jet, and Psyshock this season, and rightly so because they got huge buffs, but Upper Hand has the exact same energy costs and damage values with the added effect of a 30% chance to drop the opponent's defense. Now, I will be honest, I just threw this team together as I was looking to earn some charge TMs to feature yesterday's showcase Pokemon Shadow Malamar, but I actually managed to go on an 8-game win streak to start things off, and after 4 sets, I ended up with around a 75% win rate. So actually, the team functioned pretty well, and a lot of that was due to Hariyama. With that being said, let's just get into the question of the day. What do you think is the strongest fast and charge move combination currently available in the game? Now, it doesn't matter if the Pokemon that learn both of these moves actually isn't that good, just let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Alright, so going into the first battle, leading Shadow Grimer into Shadow for Alligator. So this is a somewhat positive matchup for me, of course. I'm going to resist the Shadow Claw damage. You can see these poison jabs are seriously chunking. Grimer, not the bulkiest Pokemon, especially in its Shadow form, so I will shield up the Hydro Cannon. I'm now going to overfarm. The opponent does make a catch onto Gradilli, but that's absolutely okay with me. Crunch is going to debuff their defense, and Shadow Hariyama, look at the Force Palm damage. They don't even reach a charge move. They come back in with for Alligator. I'm going straight for Upper Hand. Upper Hand is going to grab a shield from the opponent, and we drop their defense as well. So at this point, I'm definitely just going to shield, go for that Force Palm farm down, and let's see what's in the back. They're going to have a Shadow Typhlosion, so go for 3 Force Palms, fire off the Upper Hand here. Upper Hand is going to grab the final shield, and once again, dropping their defense. It doesn't really matter too much in this circumstance because, of course, I've still got a full health Scrafty. Thunder Punch doesn't get the KO. They do get the farm down there, but it just doesn't matter at this point. I'm going to come in with the Hariyama, force the opponent to throw a charge move. Thunder Punch gets the KO. Scrafty comes in, one more counter, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG to opponent there into next battle. You can see a Malamar in the lead, so definitely okay to see it here. Of course, Scrafty's still going to have a decent time as well, but Superpower would hit for super effective damage, so this is definitely the best position to see it in. I'm going to no shield here as the opponent baits with a Foul Play. Definitely fine with me. I'm now going to fire off a Crunch after overfarming just a little bit. Crunch is going to get the KO there, and the opponent comes in with a Mud Slap Gastrodon. So I swap into Shadow Hariyama, and the opponent comes in with a Talonflame. Now, of course, they're going to resist everything I can possibly throw, but a lot of fighting type Pokemon have rock type coverage, so the opponent ends up shielding that. I then get the debuff as well. Upper Hand number 2 does a big damage, and it drops their defense yet again. So I can just come in with the Shadow Grimer, shield once, and then go for a full Poison Jab farm down, and that should be the game 1 now, as I will come out with a Crunch loaded. We're going to bank the energy, swap into Scrafty, and Scrafty is bulky enough to tank anything they throw, even if they full send the Earth Power, which they do. We can tank that comfortably, and here all I need to do is shield up the charge move, throw an Upper Hand, grab the final shield, and that Crunch from that Grimer will be enough damage to get the KO. So we go for the Upper Hand here. Of course, not throwing on the best timing, but since they did just Since they did just throw 2 charge moves back to back, I was a little bit wary that if I didn't throw a charge move there, I could end up losing the game, but it doesn't really matter now. We can throw off the Crunch. Crunch will be getting the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's over there into next battle. We're going to see Shadow Grimer into Golisopod. So this is another decent matchup for us, resisting the Shadow Claw damage. They swap into Gradilli. We can come in with the Shadow Hariyama, and I just assume they're going to go for a Rock Tomb here. Rock Tomb, of course, is going to be resisted damage there. It does get us into the yellow health range, which is definitely not ideal, but I'm going to fire off the Upper Hand here on the CMP tie. Upper Hand is going to grab a shield from the opponent. We drop that defense there, and this one, I'm just going to no-shield this. The opponent goes for Rock Tomb again, and Hariyama able to win switch advantage and grab a shield advantage, and the opponent just concedes the match there as I'm able to take that game. But GG's up on there into next battle. Going to see a Talonflame in the lead. So this is definitely where we want to see it with this team. Of course, having two fighting types in the back. But still, Grimer, not the best matchup up against the Talonflame. We fire off the Crunch. Crunch does not get a defense drop, which is unfortunate. But at this point, I can't really afford to shield this. Otherwise, I will have to double shield to make sure I win this matchup. We're going to come in with the Hariyama. And I'm hoping 3 more Force Palms will actually get a full farm down up against the Talonflame. But they swap into a Primate. I'm going straight for upper hand here. And upper hand is going to not be respected. It gets the one shot. They come back in with the Talonflame, and they don't reach a charge move either. Not really sure what's going on here, but they come in with their final Pokemon, a Guzzlord, and that's absolutely game over. We can swap into our Scrafty. There's just nothing they can do here. The opponent going to farm up 2 back-to-back charge moves, but I'm able to outpace them to the upper hand. Upper hand gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG Top, I'm there into the next battle and actually battling up against a subscriber. So, shout out to this trainer. We are actually going to see the Yonkers team that he recently showcased with Shadow Malamar in the back. I didn't realize this at the time. I was actually midway through watching that video. I was just watching it in the background, so I honestly just hadn't really thought about it. But here we go for the upper hand, and you might think, why did we do that? We could have gone for Heavy Slam there. I realized that I don't really need switch advantage. I need energy on my Pokemon because Clodsire is a huge core breaker to this team. Like I was mentioning in the intro, I kind of just threw random Pokemon together for this team. It wasn't really what I wanted to showcase, but Hariyama actually ended up doing really well for me. But either way, we go for a Crunch. We do drop that defense, which is very nice. At this point, I still haven't really clocked on realizing that it's going to be Malamar in the back. They swap into Malamar. I'm going for Crunch, and I would ideally love a debuff here, but unfortunately not getting one. So we swap into Scrafty, and the opponent probably going to farm up 2 back-to-back superpowers. So what I'm going to do is fire off the upper hand. Now, upper hand is going to grab the final shield here. And honestly, I probably should have shielded the first charge move here. It's very risky going for a foul play bait. And the opponent, realizing that, does not bait. They full send the superpower. And at this point, it's definitely going to be game over. Superpower number 2 grabs my final shield. They can come back in with the Clodsire. Probably a Sludge Bomb will get the KO from this range, but they full send the Earthquake. And unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's up on their into next battle. Going to see a Shadow Drifblim in the lead. So this is a little bit of an awkward matchup here just because Poison Jab is going to be resisted. Likewise, on my Scrafty, my other Dark-type Pokemon counter is going to be triple resisted. So I really do need to land these Crunches to actually deal damage here. So we go for the Crunch. Crunch, of course, going to be shielded by the opponent, and they can outpace me to that next charge move. So I'm just going to shield up the Icy Wind here. The opponent then swaps into a Shadow Drapion. I'm going to respond with my Scrafty. Scrafty should be able to tank 2 Aquatels here, or a Sludge Bomb if they're running it. So I'm not going to throw straight away. Uphand probably does not get the KO from this range. So Aquatel number 2 coming through. I'm going to farm up here, throw just before they reach a 3rd Aquatel. And Upper Hand from this range does knock out the Drapion, but they come in with a Tinkaton, and Tinkaton is also a core breaker to this team, but we go for Upper Hand. Upper Hand is going to connect. No defense drop, unfortunately, but I can come in with the Shadow Hariyama. We are dealing neutral damage with these Force Pumps, and they are seriously chunking. The opponent also not throwing on the best timing. We can shield up the play rough there. They swap back into Drifblim. I'm going to overfarm just slightly, fire off the Heavy Slam. Heavy Slam should be grabbing the final shield from the opponent. We can now snipe with the Shadow Grimer, and I'm actually going to undercharge this. I was hoping that would not quite get the KO, but it doesn't really matter. We can actually get the Poison Jab farm down just barely up against the Tinkaton, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on their into next battle, Shadow Primate in the lead. So this is a matchup where, of course, if they full send a close combat, we will just lose this. So I'm definitely just going to shield this, and they do full send it. They then swap into my cargo. I can come in with the Scrafty, and they will, unfortunately, just barely outpace me to this first charge move. I'm going to no shield, and the opponent does full send the overheat there, but I'm able to tank it, able to go for the upper hand, and upper hand is going to get the KO. So the opponent comes back in with the Shadow Primate. I'm going to wait out my switch clock here and then come back in with my Shadow Grimer. And the opponent, I think I'm going to go straight for a Crunch, actually. The opponent, I don't know if they will reach a second close combat here. So the opponent does actually just settle for a Rage Fist. So I'm going to no-shield this, and then I will swap instantly into my Shadow Hariyama. And it turns out the opponent's going to have a Azumarill in the bags. Of course, not really ideal for me. I'm going to go straight for Heavy Slam here, of course, up against the Fairy and Water typing. This is only neutral damage, and honestly, Upper Hand, such a good charge move that it might be more energy efficient to go go for upper hand? I don't actually know. But either way, doesn't matter. We go for the heavy slam there. We're now going to try and throw on CMP with an ice beam. The opponent does need to overfarm here. But if they overfarm too much, we will reach another upper hand in the situation. And from this range, despite being resisted, it takes out Azumarill. And I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. Guzzlord in the lead. So, of course, two fighting types in the back. I'm going to be safe swapping into my Shadow Hariyama. And unfortunately, I am hard punished by a Drifblim. So, of course, I'm going to go for Heavy Slam. Unfortunately, Heavy Slam, not the best coverage move, of course, up against Fairy types. It is going to be quite decent for me. But just in general, I think like Rock type coverage or Dark type coverage or something like that is often better for fighting type Pokemon. But either way, or even Ghost type coverage there. But either way, they are going to fully farm me down. We're going to come in with the Shadow Grimer. I will no-shield the first move. They should reach back-to-back Icy Winds, so I am going to have to shield the next one. No, never mind. I guess I just didn't remember that correctly, but either way, we fire off the Crunch. Crunch gets the KO there. Their final Pokemon going to be a Kanto Shadow Marowak. So at this point, I'm definitely going to shield the first move here. Remember, they do have Guzzlord in the lead, so I'm going to shield up that charge move, fire off the upper hand, hoping I can fully farm them down if they no-shield, and they do actually no-shield, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be anywhere close to farming them down, so I'm actually going to double shield this. Bone Club probably going to do slightly more damage than a Dragon Claw from the Guzzlord, but either way, I don't think there's much we can do here. Dragon Claw doesn't quite get the KO. I fire off the upper hand. I need to reach a charge move on my Shadow Grimer, so I'm swapping into the Grimer, but unfortunately, it doesn't really matter. The opponent actually realizing they can just commit to a full farm down, come out with a charge move loaded, and of course, Dragon Claw takes out the Scrafty, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's top home there into the next battle, another Primeape in the lead. So this time, once again, if they do farm up to the close combat, I'm definitely going to shield, respect the damage, and the opponent once again full sends that close combat. They're staying in, they're only going to reach a Rage Fist, so I'm happy to let the next move go through. Of course, this is resisted damage, and we do get the full farm down. They now come in with a Shadow for Alligator. I'm going straight for Crunch, and I often did not swap into Scrafty, but at this point, of course, resisting the Shadow Claw damage and being bulkier, I am actually going to swap into my Scrafty. The opponent fires off the Hydro Cannon, and they're staying in with Feraligatr, eventually swapping into a Shadow Drapion. So I fire off the upper hand just before they reach an Arcatel, and this is fine with me. This will put them into Force Palm farm down range. The opponent only overfarms by a single Poison Sting, so 2 Force Palms should be enough damage to get the KO, and then at that point, it will be game over, as Hariyama can just commit to a full Force Palm farm down. I don't need to throw any more charge move, just safely shield up the Hydro Cannon, go for the Force Palm farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle, Grumpig in the lead. So, a good matchup for me. The opponent's going to safe swap into a Galarian Weezing. So, of course, forced to stay in, but they do just go straight for either a Brutal Swing or a Sludge. They go for Brutal Swing there, which is absolutely fine with me. That is resisted damage. I'm going to go straight for Sludge Bomb. Sludge Bomb, going to be no-shielded, and we get the KO. They come back in with the Grumpig. So, clearly core broken by the Grimer. However, it does really depend what they've got in the back. If it's a second Fairy-type Pokemon, I could be in trouble here. So, I do drop that defense with the Crunch. At this point, I'm going to no-shield this. Dynamic Punch gets the KO. We come in with the Scrafty, and I guess it's time to see, is it a second Fairy type in the back? The opponent fires off the Dynamic Punch, and we are now going to swap, catch the next charge move, as I realized I couldn't quite get a full farm down there. Dynamic Punch does big damage, and it's actually a Jumpluff, so not a Fairy type Pokemon, but still running Fairy Wind as the fast move, and unfortunately, there's just not a lot I can do here, especially since they shield up the Heavy Slam. Heavy Slam would have done some respectable damage there. At this point, I kind of just have to no-shield. They do bait with an Aerial Ace, but it doesn't really matter. I don't think 2 foul plays will quite be enough damage to get the KO anyways, and I actually don't even know if I will get there. I think the opponent might be at back-to-back Aerial Aces, so at this point, I'm just going to concede the match. Aerial Ace takes out the Scrafty, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. So, of course, Shadow Grimer completely core breaking the entire team. However, it basically was the only Pokemon that could deal with any of the Pokemon on their team as well. So, yeah, a little bit awkward for me, but GG's to the opponent there into the next battle. Shadow Kanto Marowak in the lead. We say swap into our Shadow Hariyama, and we're going to fire off an upper hand on the Simpy tie here with the second Bone Club. Upper hand, I'm going to grab a shield there. No defense drop, but it doesn't really matter. I'm going to no-shield at this point. Bone Club will get the KO. I am switch locked whilst the opponent is not, so I'm going to wait out my switch clock in the full, come in with the Scrafty, and then go for a full counter farm down. The opponent comes in with a Shadow Drapion, and at this point I'm thinking they must be weak to fighting in the back. So I'm going to fire off the upper hand here, and then I will swap into my Shadow Grimer, and I am correct in that assumption as they've got a Shadow Cradilly. I'm going straight for Crunch. Crunch is going to be shielded by the opponent, and we do not drop their defense. However, Shadow Grimer hits pretty hard, so I'm actually going to shield this. They will debuff my attack with the Rock Tomb, but I should be able to get the KO with a Sludge Bomb. So we are going to overfarm, fire off the Sludge Bomb. Sludge Bomb gets the KO. Aqua Tail will not be enough damage to take out my Shadow Grimer. So at this point, I'm now going to swap back into Scrafty. They need to reach 2 more charge views, and they're not able to get there, and so I'm able to take that game. So, GG's over there into the next battle. We're going to see a Malamar in the lead once again. So once again, going to stay in this lead matchup here, and the opponent is going to outpace me to the charge move. They're going to throw, I tried to throw on CMP with the Crunch, but I do not throw a charge move straight away. They actually go for the superpower this time, which does a lot of damage, but we do tank it. I can go for the Crunch, get the KO there, and again, they're going to have a Shadow Kanto Marowak in the back. So we swap into our Shadow Hariyama. Going to shield up the charge move here as the opponent fires off the Bone Club. And again, I'm going to try and throw, no, never mind. I was going to say, going to try and throw on CMP, but this time I don't. I throw slightly earlier than that, but we drop that defense. Unfortunately, they do get the full farm down there, but that's okay. I can come in with my Scrafty. Scrafty will be able to tank a Bone Club reasonably comfortably here, and I might save my Grimer for a potential catch in the end game. So the opponent swaps into their final Pokemon, a Shadow for Alligator. So at this point, I am going to have to shield this up. Hydro Cannon probably would get the KO from this range. I'm now going to fire off the upper hand here, and what I realize is if I try to make a catch here, the opponent might try and, well, just overfarm, but because we resist the Shadow Claw damage, I'm able to reach a charge move on my Shadow Grimer. Crunch gets the KO there, and they do get the Mudslap farm down, but it doesn't matter. One more counter from Scrafty, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's upon there into the next battle, another Malamar in the lead. This time, it's a Shadow Malamar, however. So, we've just seen how much damage a superpower will do. I might need to respect the damage here, and the opponent does full send the superpower before swapping into a Blastoise. Now, at this point, I'm thinking, rollout user up against a bulky fighting-type Pokemon. This should be a pretty comfortable matchup for the Scrafty, but they are able to very easily outpace us here. I haven't even fired off a charge move yet. The opponent already had back-to-back Hydro Cannons, and whilst, yes, they will not be able to farm me down with these rollouts, I need upper hand to get the KO here, and upper hand doesn't do the job. We don't drop the defense either, so if I threw slightly earlier there, it wouldn't have made a difference. And actually, I'm going to end up going down. I've already used a shield on my Shadow Grimer. I'm now going to come back in with the Grimer. Don't want to reveal my final Pokemon, but they've got a Tinkaton in the back, so this is going to be very awkward for me. I'm going to go straight for Crunch. Crunch, going to be no shielded. And at this point, I just have to tank a Bulldoze here. Bulldoze, super effective. Not a great move, though, so I am able to tank that. I can now go for Crunch, number 2. Crunch is going to get them fairly low to the point where I can come in with the Hariyama and Force Palm farm them down. But I will definitely need to shield up the Play Rough here. And we do shield up the Play Rough. But at this point, Psywaves are doing too much damage. You can see the Force Palms are seriously chunking. But unfortunately, they will just be able to commit one shield there. Go for the full Psywave farm down. Coming out with a charge reloaded. And unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG still on there into the next battle, and very well played by that opponent, by the way. We're going to see Shadow Typhlosion in the lead. So, of course, a neutral-ish matchup. So I'm going to swap into my Shadow Hariyama, and the opponent is going to fire a Thunder Punch straight away. Of course, Thunder Punch probably wouldn't quite get the KO there, but I am just going to shield it anyways. We're now going to go for an upper hand here, and again, even though we are only throwing resisted moves here, the opponent ends up shielding, respecting the damage anyways, and I also drop their defense. So second upper hand actually grabs another shield from the opponent, the final shield. We can now come in with the Grimer. I will have to shield one of these charge moves. I'll let the first one go through as they fire off the Aqua Jet there. I'm going to need to shield this, and I'm hoping I can go for a full Poison Jab farm down, but it will be very close, and unfortunately that is not able to happen there, so I am forced to swap out into my Scrafty, preserve the health and, well, the energy on my Shadow Grimer, but they've actually got Cradilly in the back, so this is huge for me. The opponent is going to go straight for a Grass Knot there, not going for the debuffing move, but I overfarm with my Scrafty. I'm hoping that I am one away from back-to-back upper hands. Upper hand gets the KO there. If they come in with a Typhlosion, we're going to commit to an upper hand here, but we don't get there in time, but it doesn't matter, as Shadow Grimer, we already have a charge move loaded. We can fire off the Crunch. Crunch gets the KO there. One more Poison Jab takes out Galissapod, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on their into next battle, Shadow Drapion in the lead, so a losing matchup there for me as they can hit for neutral damage with the Aqua Tail, so I say swap into my Shadow Hariyama. They fire off the Aqua Tail, dealing huge damage before swapping into a Talonflame. Now, I don't know if I will live the Incinerate damage there, so I go for the upper hand, and we do not live it, so of course, I did need to throw that. And again, grabbing a shield. A lot of fighting type Pokemon, like I mentioned, do have rock type coverage. The opponent just playing it safe there, although they did not need to shield that. We're now going to fire off a Crunch. I'm hoping the opponent does just let this go through here, and Crunch is going to connect. It does get the KO, and let's see what the opponent wants to do. The opponent's going to come in with a Shadow Kanto Marowak, so we come in with our Scrafty, and I am going to shield the first charge move here as once again Bone Club going to do more damage than anything a Shadow Drapion can throw. We fire off the upper hand here, and upper hand just barely does not get the KO, and as a result the opponent able to reach a last second Aqua Tail, and that is going to be huge for the opponent because now unfortunately we are in range where a single Bone Club will get the KO, and that is going to be costly for me as now we can come in with the Shadow Grimer. You can see I will actually reach a Crunch, so if I did reach that upper hand there, or if I was able to take a Bone Club, throw the upper hand, I would have been able to win that game, but unfortunately that is not the case. So GG's to the opponent there. Into next battle, Lapras in the lead, going to be safe swapping into my Shadow Hariyama. I'm definitely just going to shield respect the damage as the opponent goes for Sparkling Aria before swapping into a Serperior. Now we farmed up quite a lot of energy, we go for the upper hand, dealing decent damage there, but at this point I definitely can't afford to shield this, but I've put them into range where I can just fully Poison Jab, farm them down. The opponent not even going to reach an Aerial Ace up against the Shadow Grimer, which is very nice. They come back in with the Lapras. I'm now going to overfarm, fire off a Crunch, and if the opponent shields this, I will swap into my Scrafty straight away, as the opponent does now have the energy for a Sparkling Aria. So Sparkling Aria going to do some decent damage there. They come in with a Clodsire, which is definitely awkward for me, but I'm going to overfarm, and the opponent does not farm up to the Earthquake, and this is a resistant Stone Edge. I don't know why they baited there, but I'm absolutely fine with that. I'm now going to fire off the Foul Play here. Foul Play is going to do not an awful lot of damage, to be honest, but now I'm going to throw on the CMP type with the next Stone Edge, and the opponent again throws immediately, so I'm able to win CMP. I can now just let the Scrafty go down here, and we've actually got a chance to win this game here, even though Clodsire, a huge core breaker to the team. All I have to do is make sure the opponent does not make a catch. They're not able to do so, and as a result, getting that farm down allows us to come out with very close to back-to-back crunches, so the opponent just concedes the match. So, GG's top there into the final battle of this video, leading into a Chestnut, so this is a good matchup for me. The opponent is going to stay in, fire off a Superpower. I'm actually going to shield this. We've seen already Superpower from other Pokemon does quite a lot of damage, but they swap into Tinkaton, which is, again, like I mentioned already, very awkward for me. I fire off the Crunch. I'm going to stay in, wait for the opponent to throw a Charge Move here, as like we've seen already, Bulldoze, not the best move. We can tank it, and now I'm going to fire off a second Crunch. So Crunch coming through is not going to drop their defense, but Shadow Hariyama able to snipe with the Force Palm damage before they reach a Play Rough. That is absolutely huge for me. And now I'm going to throw a upper hand on the CMP tie here. A little bit risky up against a Volt Switch user, but the opponent does throw straight away and they shield. We drop that defense as well. All things are going in my favor right now, apart from damage registration error there, but that's okay with me. We're going to come in with a Scrafty. I can no shield this, of course. Chestnut does have access to Superpower, which is where I need to save my final shield. But actually, I'm thinking, you know what? If this Foul Play does not get the KO here, I might as well shield my Scrafty because I might put myself into range where they can farm me down. Whereas now, I'm going to shield the Scrafty. The opponent will have to be forced to throw a Superpower to get the KO. The opponent does not throw straight away. Obviously, not looking to debuff their defense. But upper hand drops the defense anyways. We get one Poison Jab off with the Shadow Grimer. And that's going to be game over. Frenzy Plant gets the KO. But I can counter, farm them down. And I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. And if you want to take your support even further, you can now become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has already become a channel member. Your support is greatly appreciated, and with that being said, thank you all so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.